Hello, everybody. I wanted to talk to you tonight about some insights I've had about just the topic of visibility in general. I've been on quite a few podcasts lately, and one of them, named The Opposite of Small Talk, is the name of the podcast. The two hosts are named Christy and Danielle, and just wonderful, wonderful people. And they asked me the question about why isn't visibility talked about in organizations? And I thought, that's actually interesting because in some ways I felt like it was this unwritten rule that no one really shared. And if you were lucky enough to get the secret code or someone shared it with you, whispered in your ear and told you that this was necessary, then you would do it. But it wasn't something that I learned in class. I took, leadership training and took new manager training, and none of those things were talked about. But I was talking with a former manager today who is a friend of mine now, and was asking her that. And she said, I just wonder if it was called something else. We didn't specifically call it visibility, but maybe that's what it was. And so, was it executive presence? Was it leadership presence? Was it, just finding ways to stand out? It wasn't specifically called that. Um, it just really made me think about that question that they asked me. And as I talk about visibility in the book with other podcasts or speaking engagements that I'm doing, it's resonating with people. And so I have to wonder, is it just something that using the word visibility, which is maybe a more simple way to describe it, is hitting home for people? And not only the importance of visibility, but that it's easier than they thought. And as I talk about how they go through the RISE process, which is the 4-step process in the book, they are seeing that it's really way easier than they thought and that they can be visible immediately. And as I've taught classes, I guess either class, right? Visibility classes as well as new manager classes, of course, I'm talking about visibility. It's, I think it's one of the most important things that people can do, especially because it really helps you enhance your image. It gives you exposure. It helps you really highlight the things that you're doing in your work and who you are and what you want to do in your career. So it is definitely a topic that I always talk about now. And I just wondered, as I thought back on previous leadership trainings that I took, it was not something we talked about, at least in that way. So it was really a great question that they asked, and made me really think about it, which I love because I get asked a lot of questions, and I love when there's some questions that are really deeper. The other one that I was asked is on a podcast called Gems, and what was interesting about that one was she was asking me about the cover of the book. And if you've seen the cover of the book, I don't have one handy with me right now, but it has all of the different light bulbs on it. And there's one light bulb that's lit up. And then obviously the title of the book. And when I thought about that book cover in general, when I created that with the person who did my cover design, I had in mind that it was a way for this one light bulb to show that they were standing out amongst all of the dimmer bulbs and for them to shine in a new way. And that's what I really thought about when I thought about that cover. And the blue color is tied to my logo. That's the colors of my logo. But then again, it's also about how other people might interpret that, right? Do other people see that cover in a different way? Do other people look at it and realize the symbolism of what those light bulbs really mean? And that as a leader, you can shine at any point at any time. It's up to you. And what do you want to do to make that happen? And I have talked about in other videos feeling safe enough to be able to do that, knowing that you're supported. But even if you aren't, how could you stand out anyway? How can you shine in just that same way as that light bulb is on the cover? How can you shine without even having your manager support? Because you may not always have that. I have definitely had situations where I haven't had it. And I'd like people to be, I don't know if self-sufficient is the right word, independent, have the ability to figure out their own fate, right? Create their own fate for this in a way that helps them see success. You're not always going to have a manager who supports you. You're not always going to have one who believes in you. I definitely talked about that in other videos. But what could you do anyway? How could you stand out regardless of that? Can you do it without them? Can you find a way to have a community of people who support you and be able to do it without them? There's always going to be a manager. We used to try to say, can we outlast the manager that's here? If it wasn't someone who is supportive, maybe. Sometimes it takes a couple years. But remember, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. So if you don't have the best manager supporting you, what can you do anyway? What can you do to stand out regardless of that manager? How can you build your network with their peers, with other influencers, establish your own identity outside of your manager? Because at the end of the day, that manager may stay, they may leave, and you're still there. And how are you going to make sure that people know you? What are you going to do to make sure that you're getting in front of them? It's up to you. These are choices that you get to make. You can't always rely on your manager to help you. You can't always rely on them to give you advice or support you. As great as that would be, and as wonderful as that is to have, if you could find a community of people that believe in you and support you, could you create the visibility or the ways that you can stand out without having your manager there? I want people to think about that because, there's always going to be a situation that you struggle with. And I want people to start to learn how to build some resilience and be able to find a way to fight through the challenges. I'm not saying that doesn't mean you need help to do that. I'm not saying that you can't reach out to a mentor or friends or coworkers or a coach or anybody else that you can trust to help you. Because it's not as easy to do it alone. It takes longer. Not saying that it isn't possible. But if you had help from others, could you do the stuff that you really need to do to stand out? Because just imagine for a minute that your manager may or may not contribute to this and they may or may not be helpful. But what if you had your own network of influencers in the organization who knew you, or they're your manager's peers, like the peers of your manager supported you, or other people in the organization, maybe on the client side, that supported you, other people in your department that supported you? It means a lot less that your manager supports you or not at that point, because you have all of these other people who are raving about you, who are talking about how great you are. And so whether your manager is there or not, you can build that all on your own. You can be very intentional and find ways to connect with all these people and talk about what's happening for them and for you. That's how you build a network that just is really strong. And it doesn't matter whether or not other people support you or not, because you are supporting yourself. This is about building your own support for yourself. And are you willing to do that? Are you willing to step out of your comfort zone, go have some conversations, talk to them about what's important to those people, tell them what you're doing, share the things that you're doing, maybe ask for advice, ask them for ways that you can help move your career along. There are so many leaders who are willing to help when you ask questions like that. You'd be surprised. You don't have to have a full thought out agenda of every line item. It's helpful if you have a few, for sure, but you don't have to have everything completely lined up and ready to go. This is about creating a conversation. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't mean that you may not make a mistake here or there. That's okay. But just the fact that you took the initiative to meet with some of these people says a lot about you. It says that you care about your career. It says that you want to improve and you want to go further and you're taking the initiative to do it. One of the people that I coach wanted feedback, and she felt like she wasn't really getting it from her manager. It was kind of more general, I would say, not very specific. And so when her and I coached, we talked about how could she get that feedback. And one of the things that she came up with and put in her plan was sending out surveys to get the information. And she did that, and she got a couple of interesting survey responses from people, and they gave her very honest feedback, which she asked for, and she was very grateful. But they also offered to do something else. They offered to meet with her and talk about it. They offered to meet with her more often. And she was so taken aback by that, so surprised. And she just didn't think that they would spend time with her or make time for her. And I asked her why she thought that was the case. Why would they do that? And she really was just so surprised. She had no idea. And so I asked her if I could share an observation. And she said yes. And I said, maybe it's because you're starting to take more initiative of your own career. You're starting to try to find ways to learn and grow and develop, and you're reaching out to these people and they're willing to help you. And so are you willing to let them help you? Are you willing to have a conversation with them that maybe helps you move to that next level? Maybe helps you understand what their feedback means in more detail, or gives you ideas of how to take what they've given you as feedback and really put it into action. You've taken the first baby steps to make that happen. So now what are you going to do with it? How are you going to take it and what are you going to do with it? And it's been really exciting to see her start to think about things differently. I think before she sent out this feedback request, she really had no idea how she was being perceived. No one was really giving her much information. And so to her, that probably meant, I just don't know that I'm valued here. I don't know that I'm supported here. I don't know that I have a career in this location that I'm in, and maybe I need to move. And so it's interesting what happens, if you don't get the responses that you expect, or you don't feel like you have community or the information or engagement that you need to stay somewhere, you'll start looking to go somewhere else. And maybe all you need is to ask for some feedback. Maybe the things that you learn are easy to fix. But if you don't know and you don't ask, how are you going to fix them? I can't tell you how many people are afraid to ask for feedback. It's really fascinating to me. Obviously, it's not easy to do. I understand that. But it's very simple. It's sending a survey out. It's sending an email out and saying, here are some of the things that I've identified that I want to work on. I would love to have your feedback on how I'm doing on these. I would love for you to share examples with me of where I'm doing well and where I'm not doing well. I'd love for you to share any other feedback that you have with me that I could improve. See what they tell you. You may need to be prepared for more honest feedback than you're ready for, but wouldn't you rather have that so that you can address it, that you can do something different because you know it, than to go along expecting that everything's going to stay the same? I'm not going to progress. I probably won't change my career in any way. I don't know if I can be successful here. What if what they're telling you is something super simple to fix? And you could have done something very easily to fix it, but you never asked the question. This is where you have to be brave and bold. Remember my 20 seconds of insane courage? Take that 20 seconds, put together a SurveyMonkey, a Google form, an Outlook form, whatever you want to do to get the information from people, and send it out to them. You can do less than 10 questions. You can do 5 questions, but leave them open-ended so that they can fill in the information for you and give you examples. But send it out to 5 people or 10 people or 15 people. However many people you feel like you need to reach out to that are going to actually give you the feedback you need. These may be direct reports if you have them, your peers, your clients, your managers' peers. Ask them for the feedback. Most people don't do this, so you will stand out simply by doing this. Notice the response that this client of mine got when she sent out asking for feedback. She didn't get a ton of responses, but for the responses that she got, they actually cared enough to call her, talk to her, and ask her how they can help. So that's where you can get the help and support from people that may not be your manager, but you have to take the initiative to build those relationships with them, leverage those relationships to learn from, and keep having the conversations with them so you can keep growing and developing outside of your manager. Make them pay attention to you. Find a way to talk to people so that they can meet you and understand who you are, and you build a relationship with them and just see what happens. I bet you'll be surprised, just like my client was. Hope you have a great day.